Welcome to our channel with new episode. President Biden is taking action in response to significant seismic activity detected beneath Mount St. Helens. Normally, this volcano experiences about 11 minor tremors per week, but recently, this number has spiked to an average of 35 quakes weekly. The U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, attributes this increase to magma movement beneath the surface. What causes such rapid volcanic unrest? Is the current level of activity a sign of an impending eruption? Let's explore the events at one of the most famous volcanoes in the United States. Since February, Mount St. Helens has recorded 1,368 small earthquakes. Most of these quakes were less than a magnitude of 1, too small to be felt on the surface, occurring at an average depth of around 3.5 miles below sea level. The largest recorded earthquake was a magnitude of 2 in May, with a peak of 38 earthquakes in a week in early June. The U.S. Geological Survey suggests that this increased activity might indicate the volcano is going through a process called recharge, where additional magma arrives. Although the risk of eruption has increased, it's essential to remember that Mount St. Helens is a fascinating and active stratovolcano in Skarmania County, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest. Mount St. Helens is part of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, a segment of the Pacific Ring of Fire. The volcano is 34 miles west of Mount Adams in the Western Cascade Range. These two are often referred to as brother and sister mountains due to their proximity and volcanic nature. Mount St. Helens is about 50 miles from Mount Rainier, the tallest of the Cascade volcanoes, and 60 miles from Mount Hood, another major volcanic peak in Oregon. Unlike its older siblings, Mount St. Helens is geologically young, having formed in the past 40,000 years. Its summit cone, which existed before the 1980 eruption, began to rise about 2,200 years ago. Among the Cascade volcanoes, Mount St. Helens is the most active, especially within the Holocene epoch, which covers the last 10,000 years. Before the 1980 eruption, Mount St. Helens was known as the Fujisan of America due to its striking symmetry and extensive snow and ice cover, much like Japan's Mount Fuji. It was the fifth highest peak in Washington, standing 5,000 feet taller than its base. The mountain spans 6 miles across at the bottom, with an elevation of about 4,400 feet on the northeastern side and 4,000 feet elsewhere. Near the summit, the cone measured for miles wide at the tree line, and the mountain's ice cover included 11 named glaciers. After the eruption, only the Shriner Glacier showed signs of revival. Streams originating from Mount St. Helens feed into 3 main rivers, the Toutle River to the north and northwest, the Kalama River to the west, and the Lewis River to the south and east. These streams are nourished by substantial rain and snow, with an average annual rainfall of 140 inches and snowpacks on the upper slopes reaching up to 16 feet. The Lewis River plays a crucial role in hydroelectric power generation, with 3 dams harnessing its flow on the southern and eastern sides of the volcano, draining into the Swift Reservoir located just south of the peak. The Crater Glacier, which began forming during the winter of 1980 to 1981, originally called the Tulutzen Glacier, formed in the shadowy recesses of the crater walls. Fueled by heavy snowfall and frequent snow avalanches, it expanded rapidly, thickening by about 14 feet each year. By 2004, Crater Glacier spanned approximately 0.36 square miles and was split into western and eastern sections by a volcanic dome. By late summer, the glacier often appeared dark due to rockfall from the crater walls and ash from volcanic eruptions. As of 2006, the glacier's ice had an average thickness of 300 feet, with the thickest parts reaching up to 650 feet. This depth rivals that of the much older and larger Carbon Glacier on Mount Rainier. Remarkably, all this ice has formed since 1980, making Crater Glacier quite young in geological terms. Its total volume is roughly equivalent to all the pre-1980 glacier in the area combined. Starting in 2004, volcanic activity began to reshape the glacier, pushing its lobes aside and causing new volcanic domes to form. This upheaval transformed the glacier's surface into a chaotic landscape of icefalls, crevasses, and seracs due to the shifting crater floor. The growth of these new domes nearly split Crater Glacier into 2 separate lobes. Despite the ongoing volcanic activity, the glacier's terminus continued to advance. The western lobe advanced slightly, while the more shaded eastern lobe saw a more significant progression. By late May 2008, the two lobes had rejoined, completely encircling the lava domes. Since 2004, new glacier have also formed on the crater walls above Crater Glacier, contributing additional rock and ice to its surface. Mount St. Helens is part of the Cascades Volcanic Province, an arc-shaped region stretching from southwestern British Columbia to northern California, roughly following the Pacific coastline. This area is fascinating due to the geological process called subduction, where a dense oceanic plate sinks beneath the North American plate. As the oceanic slab sinks deep into the earth, high temperatures and pressures cause water molecules trapped in the minerals to escape. This superheated water then rises into the mantle above, leading to some of it melting. This newly formed magma starts moving upwards through the crust, finding its way through fractures and faults, and even melting some of the surrounding rock. As this magma ascends, it changes the chemical composition of the crust it melts. Some of this melt eventually erupts on the surface, forming the Cascade Volcanic Arc, which includes Mount St. Helens. Beneath Mount St. Helens, the magma has accumulated in two chambers. The upper chamber lies about 3 to 7 miles below the surface, while the lower chamber is deeper, about 7 to 25 miles down. This lower chamber might even be connected to Mount Adams in the Indian Heaven volcanic field. Mount St. Helens' early eruptions are categorized into stages. The Eight Canyon stage occurred around 40,000 to 35,000 years ago, the Cougar stage around 20,000 to 18,000 years ago, and the Swift Creek stage roughly 13,000 to 8,000 years ago. The current period, starting around 2500 BC, is called the Spirit Lake stage. The stages before the Spirit Lake stage are collectively known as the ancestral stages. What's intriguing is the difference in the composition of the erupted lavas between these stages. The ancestral stages featured a mix of dacite and andesite, while modern eruptions have shown a variety of lava types, ranging from olivine basalt to andesite and dacite. Mount St. Helens began growing around 37,600 years ago during the Pleistocene epoch. This early stage, known as the Eight Canyon stage, featured dramatic eruptions of dacite and andesite, spewing hot pumice and ash. Around 36,000 years ago, a massive mudflow cascaded down the volcano, highlighting the significant role that mudflows have played throughout St. Helens' eruptive cycles. After a period of intense activity, the Eight Canyon stage ended about 35,000 years ago, ushering in 17,000 years of relative calm. During this time, glacier fragmented and transported parts of the volcano's ancestral cone. The Cougar stage began 20,000 years ago and lasted for 2,000 years. This period saw pyroclastic flows of hot pumice and ash, along with the growth of volcanic domes. Following this activity, the volcano experienced another 5,000 years of dormancy. The Swift Creek eruptive period then began, marked by pyroclastic flows, dome growth, and widespread tephra deposits. This phase ended 8,000 years ago, leading to a 4,000-year quiet period. Around 2500 BC, the Smith Creek eruptive period kicked off, bringing significant eruptions that covered thousands of square miles with ash and yellowish-brown pumice. One notable eruption in 1900 BC was the largest during the Holocene epoch, spreading the material far and wide. This period lasted until about 1600 BC, leaving deposits as deep as 18 inches up to 50 miles away, even reaching Mount Rainier National Park. Trace deposits have been found as far as Banff National Park in Alberta and eastern Oregon, totaling up to 2.5 cubic miles of ejected material. This was followed by another 400 years of dormancy. Mount St. Helens reawakened around 1200 BC with the Pine Creek eruptive period, which continued until about 800 BC. This period featured smaller volume eruptions and numerous dense, nearly red-hot pyroclastic flows that raced down the volcano's flanks, coming to rest in nearby valleys. A notable event during this time was a large mudflow that partly filled 40 miles of the Lewis River Valley sometime between 1000 BC and 500 BC. The Castle Creek period began around 400 BC and is notable for a shift in Mount St. Helens' lava composition with the introduction of olivine basalt. During this time, the pre-1980 summit cone started to take shape. Unlike previous periods dominated by fragmented and pulverized lavas and rocks, the Castle Creek period saw significant lava flows. For example, around 100 BC, a large lava flow extended into the Lewis and Kalama River valleys. Other lava flows, such as the well-known cave basalt with its intricate system of lava tubes, traveled up to 9 miles from their vents. In the 1st century, mud flows carried debris 30 miles down the Toutle and Kalama River valleys, possibly reaching the Columbia River. This dynamic period was followed by another 400 years of dormancy. The brief but unique Sugar Bowl eruptive period stands out in Mount St. Helens history. This period produced the only confirmed laterally directed blast before the famous 1980 eruptions. Initially, the volcano erupted quietly to form a dome, but it later erupted violently at least twice, generating a small volume of tephra, directed blast deposits, pyroclastic flows, and lahars. During this time, East Dome, a small dacite dome rich in hypersthene and hornblende, formed on the east slope of the volcano, likely around the Sugar Bowl period. This dome's formation was preceded by an explosive eruption. Around 700 years of quietness came to an end around 1480, when significant eruptions of pale grey dacite pumice and ash marked the start of the Kalama period. The eruption in 1480 was much larger than the one on May 18, 1980, by several times. In 1482, another massive eruption comparable in volume to the 1980 eruption also took place. The ash and pumice reached up to 6 miles northeast of the volcano, with a thickness of 3 feet and found 50 miles away with a depth of 2 inches. This led to significant flows of hot volcanic material and mud rushing down the west side of St. Helens and into the Columbia River area. Over the next 150 years, there were eruptions of less silica lava, forming layers of andesitic ash with alternating light and dark colors. Blocky andesite lava flowed from the summit crater down the southeast flank of St. Helens. This was followed by pyroclastic flows that moved over the andesite lava and into the Kalama River Valley. The period ended with the formation of a dacite dome several hundred feet high at the summit of the volcano. Parts of this dome collapsed, covering parts of the volcano with debris. Explosions on the side of the crater also occurred, shaping the southeast wall. By the end of the Kalama eruptive cycle around 1647, St. Helens had reached its highest point and had a symmetrical shape. For the next 150 years, Mount St. Helens stayed quiet. However, in 1800, it began a 57-year period of eruptions called the Goat Rocks period. It started with an explosion of rock and ash, followed by lava flows, and ended with the formation of a new lava dome. The 1800 eruption was likely as large as the 1980 eruption but did less damage to the mountain's shape. The ash from this eruption drifted northeast over Washington, Idaho, and Montana. Between 1831 and 1857, there were smaller eruptions, including a significant one in 1842. These eruptions probably came from a vent near Goat Rocks on the mountain's northeast side. The Goat Rocks dome, which formed during this time, was destroyed by the major eruption on May 18, 1980, which blew away the entire north face and the top 1,300 feet of the mountain. In March 1980, Mount St. Helens had a 4.2 magnitude earthquake, and a week later, steam began coming out. By the end of April, the north side of the mountain was bulging. Then, on May 18, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake caused a massive landslide, the largest ever recorded, and a huge explosion of magma flattened everything in its path for 230 square miles. The eruption released a lot of sulfur dioxide gas and sent an ash cloud 12 to 16 miles into the sky. This ash traveled east, reaching Idaho by noon, and even fell on cars and roofs in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. By the evening of May 18, the ash cloud had shrunk, but smaller eruptions continued for days. The 1980 eruption released 24 megatons of heat energy and ejected over 0.67 cubic miles of material. The mountain lost about 1,300 feet of height and gained a huge crater. Sadly, the eruption killed 57 people, thousands of animals, and millions of fish. It also destroyed hundreds of homes, and many miles of roads and railways. After the big 1980 eruption, Mount St. Helens remained active until the mid-90s with small explosions and new lava forming in the crater. On October 11, 2004, magma reached the surface again, creating a new lava dome on the south side of the old one. This new dome continued to grow through 2005 and 2006. There were some interesting but temporary features like a tall piece of hardened magma called the whaleback, which broke apart in July 2005, causing a rockfall. On March 8, 2005, a steam and ash plume shot up 36,000 feet, visible from Seattle. This was just a release of pressure as the dome grew, accompanied by a small earthquake. Another feature was the fin or slab, a large piece of the dome that rose quickly but started breaking apart by mid-2006. The dome reached 7,550 feet but was still lower than when the whaleback collapsed in 2005. On October 22, 2006, a 3.5 magnitude earthquake caused part of the dome to collapse, sending ash 2,000 feet into the air. In December 2006, a big white steam cloud appeared, causing confusion. Some thought it was a small eruption, but experts said it wasn't a big deal. The volcano had been slowly erupting lava since 2004, forming the dome inside the crater. Things got tense in January 2008 when steam started coming out of a crack on top of the dome, and there was more seismic activity. Scientists paused their work near the crater, but they didn't think a major eruption was likely. By July 10, 2008, the eruption was officially over after more than 6 months without any volcanic action. Future eruptions of Mount St. Helens could be even more powerful than the 1980 eruption. The current lava domes could build up more pressure, leading to more damage. If a big eruption happens, ash could spread over a massive area of about 40,000 square miles, disrupting transportation and daily life. There's also a high chance of large mud flows, called lahars, flowing down the branches of the Toutle River, causing serious damage along the I-5 corridor where people live and travel. Mount St. Helens eruption has been extensively studied by ecologists more than any other eruption. Researchers began studying the effects right after the 1980 eruption. Over half of the studies on how ecosystems respond to volcanic eruptions come from Mount St. Helens research. A big idea from studying Mount St. Helens is biological legacy, meaning the living things that survive a big disturbance. These survivors, such as plants that managed to survive the ash fall or volcanic debris flow, play a huge role in how the area recovers. After the 1980 eruption, some species from every level of the food chain survived, helping the food webs recover quickly. However, larger animals like mountain goats, elk, deer, black bears, and cougars were hit hard, with many dying off. Over time, these larger animals started returning to the area, but many elk couldn't find enough food during harsh winters and died. By 2014, the mountain goat population had started to grow again, reaching 65 members by 2015 and more than doubling to 152. Mountain goats are important to the Ket tribe, who have a historical connection to them. The tribe used to gather goat wool shed on this mountain and has been monitoring the goat population, which is rebounding without human help. Since the 1980 eruption, there have been many cases of people disappearing in the Mount St. Helens area. One notable incident involved a few brave individuals who reached the peak of the mountain's new summit, capturing photos and videos. One story that gained attention was about Lance, who hiked to the highest point of the crater, recording the volcanic landscape on a VHS recorder. Sadly, on his way back to Seattle, Lance was in a severe car accident with a bus and died, but his camera survived. Several others attempted to climb to the summit until 2000, only to vanish without a trace. In 2001, a visitor and his family hiked to the mountain's rim, taking numerous photos for a scrapbook. During their descent, the man stopped to take another picture from a high rock, and when the family regrouped, they realized he had disappeared. The children mentioned seeing a peculiar man who resembled their father, clapping loudly behind him and making funny faces before he vanished. Despite extensive search efforts, the man was never found, and these disappearances remain mysteries. Very Terry, an enthusiastic vlogger, embarked on an adventure to Mount St. Helens with his team to create a nature documentary. While ascending the mountain, their climbing rope snapped, causing Terry to sprain his ankle. Stranded at 8,400 feet with limited communication, Terry had to traverse over 2 miles through dense forests with a throbbing ankle to reach their camp. Relief was short-lived as a torrential downpour flooded the only dirt road leading to the trailhead, trapping them for 2 days. Seeking medical aid in Vancouver, a doctor's error led to a misdiagnosis, neglecting the severity of Terry's foot injury. The foot silently battled an infection, resulting in a permanently disabled foot and a lower leg maimed, altering Terry's life trajectory. Despite the physical toll, Terry's spirit remained unbroken. They persevered, navigating through financial strains and persistent pain. A silver lining emerged in the form of a pension, enabling them to realize a long-held dream of owning a cabin. However, a ruthless break-in shattered their sanctuary, leaving Terry devastated and devoid of their cherished belongings, including crucial equipment for their vlogs. Amidst adversity, Terry turned to online platforms, sharing snippets of their tumultuous journey. The last glimpse of their digital presence was a haunting image of an erupting Mount St. Helens, a symbolic farewell to a chapter marked by trials and resilience. Thanks for watching. Keep watching and stay tuned. Have a blessed day.